He thought it was just another quiet evening at home. But within minutes, flashing lights and strangers in fake uniforms surrounded him, demanding answers, demanding obedience. Their only crime? Targeting a black man who didn't fit their picture of belonging. But what they didn't know was that this man wasn't ordinary. His true identity would turn their world upside down. How could a simple evening in his own neighborhood spiral into a confrontation that no one saw coming? This is the story of Marcus Johnson, and the night silence revealed the truth about racism in America. Asterisk. Marcus Johnson lived a life built on discipline and service. To his neighbors, he was quiet, polite, and always kept to himself. They didn't know the long hours he worked, the sacrifices he made, or the truth about his past. To them, he was just another black man living in their suburban neighborhood, a face that didn't quite fit the picture they thought their community should have. On this particular evening, Marcus was simply tending to his small garden in front of his home, enjoying the calm after a long week. The sun was setting. Kids were playing a few houses down, and everything felt normal. But normal wouldn't last up from the corner of his eye. He noticed a group gathering near the HOA office. Their whispers carried, their eyes lingered, their tones sharp with something more than curiosity. It wasn't the first time he'd felt it, that quiet tension that follows you, that unspoken reminder that some people see color before they see character. Still, Marcus brushed it off, choosing peace over conflict, as he had many times before. What he didn't know was that tonight, their quiet disapproval would escalate into something far more dangerous. A test he never asked for. A confrontation that would not only expose their prejudice, but reveal who Marcus truly was. Asterisk, the whispers had turned into stares. Marcus could feel the weight of their eyes pressing against him, as though his presence alone was an offense. At first, he ignored it. He had learned long ago that silence often protected him more than words. But then the sound of tires crunching over gravel pulled his attention. A dark SUV rolled slowly into the neighborhood, its headlights sweeping over his garden. 3 men stepped out. They weren't police, not really. Their uniforms looked cheap, their badges flimsy, their belts missing the authority of real law enforcement. But they wore the look of men convinced they had power. They called themselves community enforcers, a term Marcus had heard whispered before a group the HOA quietly tolerated, though they had no legal authority. Tonight, they had come for him. Step away from the property, one of them barked, his voice loud enough to draw curtains back from nearby houses. Neighbors peeked through windows, their silhouettes faint against the glow of their living rooms. Nobody came outside. Nobody asked questions. They just watched. Marcus stood still, his hands brushing the soil from his palms. "This is my home," he said calmly. His words were simple, measured, but inside, his chest tightened. He knew how quickly these situations could spiral. The leader smirked. "Not for long. You don't belong here. We've had complaints." Complaints. The word stung, not because it was unfamiliar, but because it was so predictable. Too loud, too suspicious, too black. The same excuses wrapped in polite language, now enforced with intimidation. The men closed in, their flashlights darting across his yard as though searching for hidden crimes. One reached for Marcus's arm, but he pulled back. A hush fell over the street, the kind that comes before a storm. "You need to come with us," the leader said, his hand now resting on what looked like a holster. "Refuse, and we'll make you." Marcus's pulse quickened, but his face remained composed. They didn't know who they were dealing with. To them, he was just another target, another man they could humiliate to remind themselves of control. What they didn't realize was that Marcus had spent years standing against men far more dangerous than them. He had stared into the eyes of criminals who would have given anything to see him falter. And yet here he was calm, steady, refusing to give ground. Still, the danger was real. If he resisted too forcefully, if he moved the wrong way, if he gave them the smallest excuse, this could end badly. The neighborhood was silent, watching, waiting for the spectacle. And Marcus knew, in their eyes, one wrong move could turn him from neighbor to suspect, from man to threat. The fake police tightened their circle, the beam of a flashlight catching Marcus square in the face. His vision blurred for a second, but his mind was sharp. He could end this right now. He had the training, the authority, the power they couldn't even imagine. But revealing it too soon might change everything. So he stayed silent, still, waiting. And then one of them reached for his wrist. The grip on his wrist was firm, almost bruising as one of the fake officers yanked Marcus forward. The other two closed in, their flashlights blinding, their voices barking over each other. Hands behind your back. Don't resist. Comply now. Marcus's heart pounded, but not from fear, from restraint. Every muscle in his body screamed to break free, to remind these men exactly who he was and what he was capable of. But he knew one thing for certain. If he fought back, even for a second, the narrative would change. He wouldn't be the victim anymore. He would become the aggressor. And that was the story they were waiting to write. The crowd had grown larger. Now, faces pressed against glass, phones tilted in recording mode. The silent judgment of neighbors hung heavy in the air, as if they were watching a performance instead of a man's dignity being stripped away. No one stepped forward. No one said enough. The leader pulled something from his belt, a pair of plastic zip ties. His smirk widened as he lifted Marcus's wrist higher, preparing to bind him like a criminal. And in that instant, Marcus saw it all. The headlines, the mugshot, the lie they would tell to justify it all. He would be painted as dangerous, defiant, a threat. But then the shift came. Marcus straightened his back, his voice steady but cutting through the chaos like thunder. Do you know who you're putting your hands on? The men faltered for the first time, their grip loosening ever so slightly. The leader sneered, trying to laugh it off, but the uncertainty flickered in his eyes. And before another word could be spoken, Marcus pulled his wallet from his pocket, flipping it open under the harsh beam of the flashlight. The gold emblem caught the light, unmistakable, undeniable. Federal Bureau of Investigation, Special Agent, silence, the kind that drowns out every sound, every breath. The men froze, their bravado evaporating in an instant. And in that pause, Marcus's eyes burned into theirs, a single thought hanging in the air. Now you know who doesn't belong here. The moment Marcus revealed his badge, the men's bravado collapsed like a house of cards. Their threats, their false authority, their arrogance, it all vanished in the glare of reality. They had tried to strip him of dignity, to reduce him to a stereotype, but in seconds the tables turned. Their silence spoke louder than any excuse. They could have offered. Neighbors who had been watching from behind curtains lowered their phones, their faces pale, uncertain of where to look. The same people who had stood by as he was humiliated now whispered among themselves, as if shocked that the man they had doubted was the very person sworn to protect them. But Marcus didn't need their recognition. He didn't need their validation. What lingered was the truth. No badge, no title, no authority could erase the fact that before they knew who he was, they saw him only as a threat. That night, Marcus walked back inside his home without a word. But the weight of the encounter followed him. Because this wasn't just about him, it was about what it meant to be Black in America, where even power and status can't shield you from prejudice. If an FBI agent can be treated this way, what chance does a young Black man with no badge, no authority, no witnesses have? The story of Marcus is not just his story. It's the story of countless men and women who face suspicion, harassment, And danger not because of what they've done, but because of who they are. So the question lingers, how many more Marcus Johnsons will it take before we see the truth? Before silence breaks? Before justice is not the exception, but the rule?